I think I have never seen India as frightened and as insecure as we are today. I think one party is magnificently playing an insecurity in the Indian psyche. Our top layer of skin seems to have disappeared, so that everything becomes an issue that hurts my sentiments. Of course, every day. No question about that.
India is becoming a hate society.
It is becoming a hate society.
Everything there is intolerance about religion.
No, it's not only a hate society, but our top layer of skin seems to have disappeared, so that everything becomes an issue that hurts my sentiments. You know, if you sneeze, then my sentiments are hurt. And that the courts take cognizance of this. And the courts do not take cognizance of the horrendous things that are being said, the calls to kill that are being called from the microphones, episodes like this. Do you think anybody has filed an FIR against youths unknown but on video in this case of the Muslim girls being harassed? Of course not. I'm sure not. It's frightening. The hate is frightening. I think one party is magnificently playing an insecurity in the Indian psyche. You know, insecurities can be manipulated to being very different things. And the BJP and the RSS have it to a science, not even to an art. They have it to a science how to manipulate hatred. So yes, of course, in this particular case, it is a party that is built on Hindutva, which is built on hatred. Look at what they've done to the figure of Ram. From Maryada Purush, he's become this, six packs, and Hanuman has become the same. And that is the terrifying male patriarchal warrior stance that we do not need in the world, and that is what you are pushing. And that, when unleashed, I think I have never seen India as frightened and as insecure as we are today. And these are the two factors that are played upon. It's like an animal feeling cornered, and then that animal will go completely wild. We have engineered our population to feel cornered when there is no cornering happening. And then it goes completely amok. All of us have a light and a darkness inside us. And for me, Hinduism has accepted both of these, and everything that I know from my Upanishad and my Vedas tries to bring out the light. It doesn't say that the black doesn't exist. It says it exists, but the purpose of life should be to try and find that which is good, that which is generous, that which is compassionate. And yet we are living through a time when all we are encouraging is the blackness. And we are influenceable people because we are frightened, because we are frustrated, because we think that our jobs might go tomorrow, because we live in a world where my child can be abducted tomorrow and raped and hung up on a tree. These are realities. These are realities. I might be going in a train and the train might blow up. So we are frightened, and people are playing on that fear and turning it into I against everybody else. And it's like that famous poem from the Second World War that Neo Muller, I think that's how it's pronounced, Neo Muller wrote, which says, when they came for the handicapped, I didn't say anything because I'm not handicapped. When they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything because I'm not a gypsy. When they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I'm not a Jew. And when they came for me, there was nobody left to talk. It's like that. Today, it's anti-Muslim. Then it will become, if all the Muslims go out of the country, then it will become Dalits. Then it will become something else. Then it will become Adivasis. So it never stops. In the family, you first throw out your daughter-in-law because after all, she's from another family. Then you throw out the girl because after all she's only a girl. Then you throw out the mother because after all she's old. You know, this shrinkage, there's no end to it. There's absolutely no end to where we are going. It's a very fast spiral into blackness. We used to have these midnight conversations about Urdu poetry and about dance. It was quite extraordinary as a friendship, actually. You know, in 1999, Vajpayee decided to take this bus, this Samjhauta bus to Pakistan. And I was very surprised one day when I received a telegram saying that the Prime Minister wants you to come on this bus trip. And I said to Amma, the Prime Minister, I'm sure knows perfectly well what my views on the BJP are. So why is he asking me? So there were two women. There was a very famous economist called Veena something, and me. And there were cricketers and there were sort of poets. So in the bus, Vajpayee was calling one person after another to sit next to him and talk to him. So when my turn came, I went to him and I said, Vajpayee ji, मैं पूछूं, आप पूछो उससे पहले मैं पूछूं कुछ? So he said, हाँ पूछिए. I said, आपने मुझे क्यों चूज़ किया? क्योंकि आपको तो मालूम है मैं तो आपकी पूरी आइडियोलॉजी से लड़ूंगी और लड़ती आई हूँ. So इसे सामने वाले को दिखाए तो जरा हमारी औरतें कैसी है. Then he said, देखिए मेरी पौती ने पूछा है आपको पूछने के लिए, मैं अगर जवाब नहीं दूंगा तो मेरी पौती बात नहीं करेगी. So क्या है, उसको जानना है कि आप दोनों कान में अलग इयरिंग क्यों पहनते हैं.
What was the reply? I mean,
I said लोग सेम क्यों पहनते हैं? किसने रूल किया? Is there anything in nature that is exactly the same? A tree, all the branches are different, every leaf is different. So who made this rule? It's a very patriarchal capitalist rule.
So it's an act of rebellion. Or
it's my little act of daily rebellion.
It's got, I mean, aesthetics has got nothing to do with that, right?
Oh, then it became an aesthetic thing, then what I would wear with what. And and then all my women friends, when they lose one earring, they send me the other one. So they have found a good way of getting rid of their single earrings. So you can send me one too next time you lose one.
That's how the between Vajpayee and you started off.
Yes, and then what happened was Keshubhai Patel's ministry was in Gujarat and the earthquake happened. And because I had just, I met Vajpayee in 1999, in the end of 99, and this happened in 2001. So by that time Vajpayee was always still calling me and saying, "Aaj kya earring pehni hai tumne?" sort of thing. And we were just sort of pleasantly. And when I saw the extent of corruption that was going on in the distribution of aid that was coming in, I was absolutely horrified. And it was mainly the government that was diverting things, selling blankets in the bazaar and taking food grains and selling them in the bazaar. So I phoned Vajpayee and I said that this is happening. So he said, "You please come." So my brother, who was already involved in working in Kutch in the rehabilitation, he and I flew. And I told him about this, and he immediately changed the government. And Kartikeya and I became his eyes to see that the whole effort was not again diverted. And that's when we really became close. And then 2002 happened. So it was I who phoned Vajpayee to say, whatever you are being fed is wrong. This is not a riot. It is a very, very systematic genocide. And it was because of my insistence that he came to Gujarat on the 4th of April and made his famous Raj Dharma Humne Khoya Hai speech. Next day he went to Goa and he was told, "You'll be thrown out." So he changed this. Then I didn't meet him for 3 years. Then I met him at some government function and he turned to me and he said, "Aap bahut khafa hai na?"
He invited you to
In 84, he asked me to stand.
Okay. Why didn't you like?
I was going after the Mahabharata.
Okay.
It was the Mahabharata of elections. Otherwise, I probably would have done it.
Oh, you'd have joined Congress.
I would have joined Congress. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Amma and Indira were in Shantiniketan together. They shared a room.
Yeah.
So that friendship went very, very early, and whenever Mrs. Gandhi would be short of a sari or wanted something in particular, she would call Amma and say, Mrinal, this is what I need, please find me one. So it was very much that kind of a woman to woman, girl to girl kind of relation. And of course Papa and she were very close because of the whole atomic energy and all of that. And Ammaji, my Ammu Swaminathan, was one of the signatories of the constitution and was on the constitutional assembly. So she and Panditji were very close. So it's sort of, yeah, it just went. I don't know Rahul or Priyanka at all. But yeah, he was very keen. He was very keen. For 24 hours. Ask me what happened after 24 hours. I had worked with Kejriwal in the RTI, in the whole RTI movement. So I had worked with Kejriwal, I had worked with Manish Sisodia. They used to constitute a prize for the best RTI activist. I was on that jury. So I knew them both very well. So I and 30 of my colleagues joined up one day. The next day, Kumar Gaurav gave a lecture which was so misogynistic and so anti-woman that I said, this is not going to work.
And
so we resigned. All 30 of us.
So you were enough for one day, Monday, right?
There have been in-between people over the years, even when he was Chief Minister. But my views haven't changed. He came as Prime Minister to unveil Papa's statue in our house, the corner of the house where Papa's laboratory used to be, and which in 1973 the Sabarmati had huge floods, and that whole piece of land got cut off, and the laboratory went, and all of Papa's stuff went. And so that corner, Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation wanted a statue of Papa, but they have a new regulation which says that it can't be on public property. So it's a corner on the river, and became a corner on the river front, because our house and the theatre and Darpana were cut off from the river by the river front. So it was the Prime Minister who came to inaugurate it.
And did he say to you about your statement against him, or did you had any or you,
No conversation.
You spoke to him that
Nothing. It was. I mean, I know his views and he knows mine. He was perfectly civil. He was correct as Prime Minister in the inauguration. He was warm and. But there was nothing new in that. All of that had come out in the Tehelka tapes, in the Human Rights Watch report, in the various testimonies that we gave to the SITs that were set up. So for us there was nothing new. It was what we had always said. And it was what the court didn't accept. The only thing new was that Jack Straw spoke. And he spoke of this report that had been set up but not released. Other than that, what they spoke about are things that we know happened.
So the BJP says that actually it was Narendra Modi who tried to control the riots. What's your opinion about his role being there?
Have you read the Panchatantra? That's my answer. Or the Arabian Nights. If you terrify an entire community so much, they are just fighting for survival. They are very poor, and they know that there is no way they will get justice if anything goes wrong. It's a terrified community.
It's a terrified silence.
It's a terrified silence.
But BJP
And there have been riots. There have been communal clashes. But in each of the communal clashes, whose FIR gets taken is obvious. I mean, there's no question about it. So yes, technically what they say is true.
But the BJP says Muslims are now supporting the BJP.
When you have no other way of surviving in this country, what do? How many Muslims are fleeing? Every single Muslim that I know who can afford it and who is educated is leaving the country, because they say quite clearly this: you either live in serfdom or you leave.
So you are not ready to forgive Modi.
My issue is not so much with Modi, please understand this. My issue is with a belief system that is non-secular and that divides people under any circumstances. I would oppose a party who divided North from South. I would oppose any party that made Gujarati or Malayalam less important than Sanskrit. I would oppose any party that said this caste is the ruling caste and everybody else. I oppose anybody breaking the Constitution of India. I oppose any kind of ideology that lessens the freedoms we were given and the rights we were given. And I think my religion is extremely personal. Nobody has any business telling me what my religion. If I want to take this and say this is my Devi under Sanatan Dharma, there is no way that you can say to me it's not. If this is my Devi, this is my Devi. It's a personal religion. And the BJP and RSS are making it into an Abrahamic religion where there are 10 things that you have to do to prove that you are a Hindu, and there are 10 other things which are sins. There is no concept of sin in Hinduism. And what is Krishna's? I mean, how many of these people have even read one of the Vedas, or read the Upanishads, or even read the Mahabharata and Ramayana? These people who go around saying Jai Shri Ram and Bolo Shri Ram. And I mean, I would do the same against an Islamic state. If India was becoming either a Christian state or an Islamic state or a Jain state, my opposition would be the same. So please understand that it's not Modi. Modi is one person. I do. Him and his administration.
The main argument now is that there is no opposition in the country. No opposition are not united. That's why BJP is coming.
I would rather put a Kathakali Kiritam on the stage and say this is my Prime Minister than have this government. If there is no opposition, I would rather have a mask or a Kiritam sitting there. Because I think this present government is totally destroying the fabric of this society, and they are destroying every institution. And institutions take decades to build. And once a poison has crept in, once a toxin has crept in, it's very difficult to clean it. And you can see across the country institution after institution falling.
You can see that everywhere. Recently, I think during the test match, when Shami was coming in the field,
they were saying, Bolo Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram,
Can you imagine coming to cricket? That and Bollywood used to be the two places where the Hindu-Muslim question hadn't touched. And you take Shah Rukh Khan, you target his son, and you take Muhammad and you target him on the cricket. I mean, there's nowhere lower we can go.
How is the situation so bad in Gujarat? Coming from Ahmedabad,
Why should I cede my place?
No, I mean, it's like.
My friends tell me that I live in Darpana, I don't live in Ahmedabad at all. Which is probably true.
You are part Gujarati, no?
I am part Gujarati.
How
Didn't think about it in those years.
Okay. Because cultures are totally different.
Yeah, but mine was already a mixed culture, where the two cultures sat very happily together.
So you tell us a little about your growing up, no? Because you had two most famous people as your parents. Like, it would be
They were just Papa and Amma. No, in the early years, it was always Papa who was babysitting.
Okay.
Because Amma was already very famous as a dancer and she was touring all the time. And Papa and Amma had a pact that till I'm the younger child, that till I was 12 years old, one parent would be in Ahmedabad. And it was invariably Papa. So whenever I got into scrapes in school, whenever I got into anything, it was always Papa who was babysitting.
Okay.
Always. And if he saw me in a dance competition, he'd say, you have to become a dancer. Then he'd see my science grades and he'd say, you have to become a scientist. Then he'd see me play badminton, competitive badminton. You have to become a badminton player. And Amma was an extraordinary mother, you know. I hated her going on tours. I was really Amma's baby, not Papa's. And she would go on these long tours, you know, when you are 5 years old and 10 years old, a 2-month tour is like forever. And this was extraordinary. I've not been a mother like that, and I've never seen another mother like that. She would write me a letter for every day that she would be away. And she would describe where she was. So she would say, you know, I'm writing this from Paris, but they would have all been written in Ahmedabad. I'm writing this from Paris. Out of my hotel room, I can see the Eiffel Tower and I can smell the croissants. And she would leave that whole pack of letters with my nanny, who would every morning, when she came to wake me up for school, hand me the letter that had come from Amma today. And she would do the same with the menus because she knew Papa was very busy and Papa was a great foodie. So when Amma, this complete meat eater, married not only into a Gujarati but into a partially Jain family, it was hell for her. But because Papa was a foodie, and she was not at all, couldn't be less interested in food. But she spent a lot of time studying the cuisines of the world and transforming them into vegetarian food. So I mean, just now everybody knows about pasta and so on. But I remember eating spaghetti bolognese vegetarian when I was 3 years old. And there was another very curious thing. You see, Papa and Amma both worked after dinner. So Papa would go back to the lab and Amma would go back to her theatre rehearsals, not dance. Dance was always in the morning. But post dinner with the theatre rehearsals, she would be directing a play or she would be overseeing the direction. So lunch was always Indian and dinner was always non-Indian. It was always Western. And there was another precedent to this, which is that when my grandfather and grandmother were bringing up Papa and the 8 siblings, they felt that they had to be trained from a very young age in being at home anywhere in the world. So one day they would have Chinese food and one day they would have Mexican food and they had to know which spoon to use and which. So it was also a partial training ground. With Papa and Amma, it was just that they wanted a light meal because they needed to work for the next 3 hours. So we have still, that's still what happens in my family. That the heavier meal is at lunch and that's the Indian meal. And at dinner, there's food from all parts of the world. And we remain vegetarian. It was not that my parents ever said be vegetarian or Amma tried to. It was just that Kartikeya and I both remain vegetarian, my children as well. So, except for maybe when I was 13-year-olds and wanted to go out and Amma said you can't go out with a single boy because you'll get a bad reputation, and then by the time you know what your reputation is, I don't want to be blamed for not having warned you. So there were these silly rules. And she explained to me why the rules were. She said, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just that, you know, people talk and unnecessarily you'll get a name by the time you're 15 or 16 as this loose girl. And it's not a reputation that you might want. After you're 18 or 19, you do what you want. So except for those kind of silly frictions, I want to go to a film and I can only find one boy to go with me. No, you can't go. You know, the silly things like coming back at midnight. Those are things. But other than that, we were like one person. And I was the one who was protective of Amma. She was protecting me, but I was the one who, as I was growing up, was protective of her. If she and Papa had issues, I was the one who took her side, and like that with Papa. And then, you know, Papa died end of 71. I went into IIM. I did my IIM 2 years, then I did my PhD for 2 years. And in 76, I was going through a personal crisis and was going through a very severe depression. And for 4 months, didn't know what to do. I would just sit looking at the river, basically. And then one morning I had my eureka moment. And I said, what am I doing? All I want to do is dance. And I ran to Amma's room, and I could still see her entire body and her face transforming at this news. Because she and Papa had this partnership. And when Papa died, it was like she lost the will to dance. She lost her partner, and therefore she didn't want. And we pushed her into it because we knew the only way she would get over the grief is if she danced. If she didn't dance, the grief would never go. So we pushed her into going on tours. We pushed her into accepting performances. But when I said that I wanted to dance, it was like her second innings. It was like a rebirth. And then for the next 25 years, we had the most extraordinary relationship. And my only other world experience has been the day we performed together for the first time. As soon as I started performing, she created a work called Meera. She was a great Krishna Bhaktamma. And she always felt that Meera couldn't have been Meerabai since she was a little girl. She might have been very inclined to Krishna, but she was also a little girl. So she must have wanted to play. She must have wanted to go out. She must have wanted to dress. So she created a Meera where I was the external Meera, the playful one, and she was the interior Meera, always thinking this was not enough, that she had another longing, she had another calling. And over time, the two Meeras come together and then become Meerabai. And I remember this first performance, and I remember this feeling that I was floating on the top of the theatre, and I was looking down at these two women, my mother and myself, and I could see that they were actually one person. There were two bodies, but there was only one soul. And I could see it so clearly. And it remains with me as though it happened yesterday. And it's my only otherworldly, one of the few otherworldly experiences I have. But it was like that. So Amma, that was still a period when I was not creating, because this was late 70s. And I didn't start creating for another 15 years. She would be choreographing and she would say, and now take, and I would know exactly what she wanted. And already on the floor, I would have done it. But it was that kind of a very, very deep-rooted, not only spiritual connection, but a physical connection. And you know what is really strange? That today, when I'm doing a Bharatanatyam performance, I'm on stage, and I suddenly get this feeling that arm is not me, that's Amma's arm. It's not me. And I do a gesture, and I bring a bhava on my face, and I can see Amma's face. It's this very, very deep and, for want of a better word, spiritual connection. And that remained. It was never envy. It was never my being told Amma was a better dancer, or Amma being told she's younger and therefore more beautiful. It was never any of that. And it's never been like that with my children and me. And all three generations danced together. We did a performance called Two Lives in Dance and Two More, which was a sort of autobiographical show where we spoke of our lives and how dance came into our lives. We danced our lives, and how Revanta at the age of 5 said to me, I want to be a dancer. And how my daughter was much more like me, who said, no, I don't want to dance, it's too much work, too much bloody work. And then my daughter at one stage realized that Amma, Revanta and I were going off on tour, and she was stuck alone. And she said, okay, I'll dance. And she's a beautiful dancer. She's a really beautiful dancer. Both the children are. But Anahita, unlike Revanta or me, has that spiritual quality that Amma has. You know, when Amma went on stage, it was like a light bulb lit up inside her. You could see that this was a different person from the person I have dinner with every night. It was a complete. Anahita has that quality, but she's not dancing. So it was a very you know, people are always saying to me, did you feel a pressure that you had to live up to your parents' expectations? They had no expectations except that we were good human beings and did what satisfied us. So there was none of this, you have to take this, you have to take that, you have to do that. And there was such incredible trust. You know, they felt that if by the age of 8 or 9, they hadn't taught us what was good from what was bad and what was right from what was wrong, then they had failed as parents. And having that trust meant that you didn't police the children. So, I could have boys sleeping in my room when we were in school, staying up all night. And she said, listen, Mallika, do it at home. Because again, I don't want you to be misunderstood. And I understood when I was 17 or 18, I understood what she was talking about. But it was an incredibly, what's the word I'll use? So they brought us up on very democratic principles. Okay? So any decision that needed to be taken that affected all four of us had to be vetted by everybody. So I remember a new car was to be bought and for Amma, and a Fiat was decided upon, and I must have been 3 and I wanted it to be pink.
Understood.
Everybody thought this was a really bad idea. But I remember sitting for 3 or 4 days and very calmly, Papa and Amma convincing me why it was a bad idea. Until I was convinced and said, yes, the car was not bought. You know what that did? It made us responsible for our own actions and our own thoughts. It made us responsible for points of view that we took. And that was an extraordinary learning. Another amazing learning. As I said, Papa was always the one when I was in trouble. So this was my first day at a Montessori school. And it was the Montessori school run by my aunt, where I did all my schooling. And in the Montessori kindergarten, they make you sit in a round circle and they make you draw and everything. And apparently the teacher must have said, draw a face, draw a human face. So I drew a human face and I must have drawn the ears somewhere incorrect. So there's a little boy sitting next to me who later became a very good friend. But at that time he was horrible. And he said, "Tu to gadhedi che, you are an ass." So I said, why am I an ass? He said, don't you even know where the ears are? I got very upset. So we have a porch outside. So the cars drive up onto that porch, and the porch is a sitting area as well. So I was sitting like this, crying. And Papa came back from the laboratory and he said, Madli, what's the matter? I said, I'm not going back to that school. So he sat me in his lap and he said, why are you crying? What happened? So I related what had happened. So he turned to me and said, Madli, what are you? I said, I'm a little girl. So he said, Malli, you should feel sorry for that boy. He doesn't know the difference between an ass and a little girl. You know that difference, so you should feel sorry for him. And you know what it translated as? It translated for me as I grew up that you can only be insulted or humiliated by somebody that you give that power to. That you are the one who are giving that power to somebody to wound you. If you don't give that power, it doesn't matter what they say, it reflects them, not you. And boy, has that stood me in good stead with all the galis I get for my political stands and my ideological stands. And when I was first starting to dance, I once got my first bad review, said something really stupid like, she's so beautiful, why is she wasting her time dancing? She should go into the movies. And something about my having too much eye makeup or something. And I was really, really upset because this person wasn't saying anything about the dancing. I know whose review it was also, but I won't say that. And I cut out the review and I sat with it. And I must have been, this was before I became a professional dancer, so I must have been 18, 19. And I made a paper boat of it and I filled the bathtub with water and I sank it. And even today, if somebody writes horribly about me or incorrectly, mentally I sink it. And I can't tell you what a catharsis that is. So these are my two ways of dealing with a hostile world. You either sink it or you don't give them the power to humiliate you. I mean, what I have been called in the press because of my position against the BJP, you have no idea the names I have been. And in this country now with social media, but in any country, the minute you want to attack a woman, you attack her body. And I have got it. And then I got it tremendously after I took my position, after I took Mr. Modi to court, after I took him to the Supreme Court. So at one stage I said to myself, who are these people who are writing such horrible things to me? Let me get back to them. So I used to get several hundred a day of abusive, derogatory, threatening they'll take my children away, they'll cut off my arms, they'll take my daughter and rape her. And she was like 3 years old or 5 years old somewhere. And I started writing back to them. And I would write individually and I said, thank you for your message. I understand that your position is very different from me. And I accept that we have different positions. But if I give you that allowance, shouldn't you be giving it to me for having a different opinion? And believe you me, at least 50% wrote back apologizing. That you took the time to write back to us. We are really very sorry. You know, we thought you were a very different kind of person, and we apologize, and ma'am, sorry. So there is a way of fighting hatred. We just all need to do it. All the time. There's no off day, unfortunately.
You mentioned the activists, before even you knew the word activism. How do you look up to the present times where there are a lot of activists in social media, wherever you see woke culture, use a lot of words which are
I think the more activists, whether they are pseudo activists or genuine activists or social influencers trying to become social influencers, the more the better, because nothing bad can come out of it. Even if you are pretending, there is this study of brain sciences which says that even if you don't feel like smiling, smile, because the very act of smiling tells your brain that you are happy, and soon you'll start feeling better. So it's like that. Even if the activist is only doing it to get media attention, somewhere they will get involved. And I think the more activism, the better. I stopped Hindi movies for one reason, I stopped Gujarati movies for another reason. I stopped Hindi movies because I was making movies in 1972-73 when I was in IIM. And I was making them before the new age movies came. So people like Saeed Mirza and these people hadn't started making movies yet. Shabana and Nasiruddin weren't making movies yet. And all of my first 3 movies, all of which were on very difficult subjects, one was on incest, one was on a woman having seen her father philandering and deciding to become a single mother and have a child by herself. So these were in the early 70s, you can imagine. And none of them got released. I got awards for them because they were sent to the circuit, and I got one journalist award, some other award, but none of the films got released, and I got really frustrated. Then, of the director Satyadev Dubey? So Satyadev Dubey and Saeed Mirza, and these were the people who were, in some senses, mentoring me. I just finished the IIM, and I decided that I would take a year in Bombay, figuring out whether I wanted to do films. And I was very disappointed that these films weren't getting released. So Satyadev Dubey said to me, you have to do one commercial film, you can't just give up. So he signed me up for a commercial film with Sunil Dutt. And Sunil Dutt was okay because he and Nargis knew my parents, and so it was all right. But it turned out to be a disaster. And so Satyadev said, no, you have to do one more film. Just because this is a disaster doesn't mean. So I got signed up for this film by Prakash Mehra with Amitabh Bachchan, Zeenat Aman and Vinod Khanna. And I was paired with Vinod Khanna. And we were doing a song number at the beginning of the film. Bandra was just being built up at that time, and there was this 20-story building, and on the top of this unfinished building, Vinod and I were doing a song. And I was doing a proper take. after all, I had blood, dance in my blood. And the sort of fat dance director sitting on a plastic chair went on saying, no, NG, another one. So after like 10 takes, I went to him and I said, what is happening? My sync is correct, my movement is correct, my positioning is correct. Move your basically. I picked up a chair, I broke it over his head, and I walked out of the industry. So that was how I exited Hindi films.
What an exit.
Now Gujarat.
Now Gujarat. No, Gujarati films, the first film I did is the equivalent of Silappatikaram to Tamil culture. It's the most famous. And it's about a young village girl who merges with Devi. So it's not a love story. But it is to Gujarati culture what Silappatikaram is to Tamil culture. Okay? And it was such an extraordinary role that when it came to me, it's called Maina Gurjari. And it's part of our folk legends, you know. And when it came to me, I couldn't say no. So I said, chalo, ek Gujarati film bhi try karte hain. So I did it and I loved it. It was a lovely unit, and Maina Gurjari remains till today the longest running and the most successful Gujarati film ever. I did it in 1976. It ran in all theatres for an entire year, houseful. And even today, I'm out shopping or out on the street in Ahmedabad, and somebody will come and hold me and start singing a song from Maina Gurjari. Even today, 50 years later. So then I started getting lots and lots of Gujarati things. And at that time, Gujarat was a very different kind of industry. It wasn't commercialized, it wasn't vulgar. So I started doing films I was enjoying. I loved doing films. And then it just became bad films. And by that time I found dance. So. But I would love to do a film.
You did one Malayalam movie.
Danny. With TV Chandran. The man who is the artistic director of Darpana just now, Yadavan Chandran, is TV Chandran's son. And he was the 8th assistant. He had just finished his film studies from Loyola, and he was the 8th assistant on the unit, but he was the only English speaker. So he was assigned to me. And I started talking about the development work that Darpana did with cinema, with video, with dance. And he had studied this but never thought it possible. So he got really interested in this. So he came for 2 months. And that's 23 years ago. So and he's like, we collaborate on most of our work. And we collaborate, he's an amazingly creative person. And a lot of the technology work that I do has been brought in by Yadavan, and he started a department called Darpana Communications, which does all this cutting edge technology. So he's very much, so yeah, my Malayalam film yielded good results.
Okay. You recently worked with this series Rocket Boys, because it's about your father.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's quite an engaging series that was. But one thing that people often said about that is like scientists are, were turned into Bollywood stereotypes. Are you really happy with the outcome? Like the
very happy.
Okay.
And I don't agree with that statement. And I have to tell you that I worked on the script for 2 years. And I worked on the second part as well, which is coming out day after tomorrow. The second part is mostly post-Papa and CIA conspiracies and so on. But I don't agree at all. And I have to tell you that I have never seen a Bollywood production company respect the wishes of a family as much as they did. Even 24 hours before it was released, they flew me to Bombay. They said, listen, this is the last chance. If there is anything that upsets you or is against Vikram Sarabhai, tell us just now, we'll take it off. And they took it off. And that kind of love and respect I have never seen in Bollywood in all my years. Even now, I was upset by something in the second series. They sent it to me to watch, and the producer and the director both flew to Ahmedabad to talk to me and to see how they can get around it. What was I suggesting that? So it's been, listen, I know that it's not a documentary. You have to take liberties to make it interesting. But they've had 10 million hits. I mean, science is suddenly sexy again. And it's only because of the Rocket Boys. And that was the purpose. They wanted people like Homi and Papa to become icons rather than all these gundas and chores that are the icons of all our Netflix series and all our films, including Malayalam films. And in that they have succeeded. That every young child has gone and looked for who Homi Bhabha is, looked for who Vikram Sarabhai is. all the air hostesses wanted a photograph of mine, not only because of who I am, but because they'd seen Rocket Boys. And you know, so it's generated that all the way down. So scientists might say, you know, this is not scientific. Hello, but nobody's saying it's scientific. Nobody's saying that Homi Bhabha actually dived into a reactor. But you have to make it interesting. You have to have people watching it. Otherwise, I mean, how many people watch a documentary? So if it becomes the most watched series, we and the producers have achieved what we wanted, which is A, to get a new generation to know that there were idealistic people like this, that the politicians supported so wholeheartedly. I mean, today scientists are crying, saying we can't even get an undersecretary to respond to us. I was recently in Hyderabad at a science conference. I was performing, and they were telling me, because they've seen Rocket Boys, that, you know, how I said, Papa could pick up the phone and talk to the Prime Minister anytime. And they were saying that we can't even get an undersecretary to respond to us. We can write and ask for an appointment for months on end. And that is the India that we need to show people, that an India like this existed. An India of idealism existed. An India of inclusivity existed. So whatever people might say, I don't think either of them are Bollywood. I think Jim Sarb plays it, but Homi Bhabha was a flamboyant character. I knew him as a child, and he was flamboyant. He was very much a ladies' man. And Amma and he had a completely separate relationship from Papa. So I know, I mean, we have the sketches that Homi did of Amma. You know, so he was, and Papa was a very much self-effacing but charming. I mean, nobody could not love Papa after having met him. And I get that response all the time. And if we have touched a new generation that is so cynical and so full of themselves and so wanting the blue tick on social media, if we have touched them with some idealism, I mean, that's great. Do you like sambar or avial? Choose. These are all just different strings on the instrument I play to communicate ideas, hopefully to communicate ideas that go towards a more socially just society, a more compassionate society. And I use whichever one or in whichever combination that I think is best for that audience. My talking to you just now is no different from my dancing. It's really just communicating. Does that make sense? So if in the middle of some very serious conclave of business, I suddenly do a cartwheel or go into a monkey or something, it's because that will communicate that better at that time.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Kerala is strange in different ways. On the one hand, men and women don't dance together. On the other hand, in no other state in this country will you be reading the credits of a film or the editorial board of a magazine and have one Christian name, one Muslim name, one Hindu name, one Christian name, one Muslim name. So on the one hand, you are keeping the genders apart, and on the other hand, you have this wonderful mix, which is inseparable. So something went a bit kinky somewhere.
Something is wrong.
I mean, I don't think any other state has this problem. Like,
No.
every other state.
Not even UP.
Exactly.
And you couldn't go worse than that.